Welcome, I'm Peasant, and today we're doing a principal playthrough, but with green. So, although green isn't necessarily the spirit that most people recommend to players that are just starting out with the game, I actually think they're pretty good to start with. I think they're actually easier, more straightforward in their playstyle than a lot of the other low complexity spirits, apart from River. I think River is the best to start with. But yeah, so enough of that glittering generality. Let's look at our opening board, and we're going to be, of course, it's a principal playthrough, so we're going to be trying to bring it back to principles as much as possible. Green actually has a very specific thing that they can do in their opening that destroys the town, so we will be doing that. As green, our tracks, because we've got the ability to place a lot of our own presence very quickly, our tracks don't look very impressive, but that doesn't matter because we can place our presence so easily. So yeah, the opening with green is a little bit specific. We're going to need this early energy, and we're going to want to be playing a couple of cards a turn for the first few turns. Now, we're going to go with this option here, and I'm not going to go into the absolute details of that. But our main principle we're going with here is placing presence as quickly as possible. That's how we power up our spirit. Better to have, 3 energy than 0, 4 place than 1. You get the drift. Okay, and we've got these mountain builds here. So this land here, they're going to build a town, and then it's going to be a 6 ravage. So going with the general idea of it's sometimes, just letting lands go can be a good strategy. I'm going to provisionally just let this go. That might be an extreme reaction, but the good thing about just letting lands go is it means that I could focus on clearing this inland and potentially preventing a whole slew of invader actions, explores, and then if you print an explore, typically you're printing a build and a ravage as well. So I'm going to be busying myself trying to clear the inland. Now as green, we've always got this presence, this jungle wetland presence place. So as a general thing I like to do with green is when I do have an opportunity to place a presence on a sand or a mountain, I tend to try and do that. So for example, this extra presence place here, or this presence place here, where of course in solo spirit you can target yourself with this, and we will be doing that. So I try and use those for the sand and mountain. And why is that? Because we have this incredibly powerful choke the land with green ability. Whenever invaders would ravage or build on a land with your sacred site, you may prevent it by destroying one of your presence in that land. This is incredibly powerful. This is why green can, not effortlessly exactly, but this is why green I think is just pound for pound. Sorry, yeah, I'm going with that, but why they're so strong, and they are incredibly strong. You can beat pretty much any level 6 adversary with green because they've got the ability to just go, you know what, France, yeah, don't ravage there, don't build there, France, or England or whatever, or Sweden, their ravage is the problem. So you hit them in the ravage. Anyway, that's getting a bit beyond us. So turn 1, we're just going to go with the trick. Now the reason we like this trick is it's going to let us destroy a town. We're going to be combining Creeper's Tear into Mortar, and we're going to be combining that with Stem the Flow of Fresh Water. So we're going to do a damage to a town, and then we're going to do the extra damage with Creeper's Tear into this. It's actually slightly tricky to set up. It's quite easy to mess this up, because you need both a sacred site and your presence in with a town. But of course, do have gift here. So, of course, I'm going to play this on myself, and I'm probably going to use this as an opportunity to place into a sand or a mountain. Okay, so, I mean, we could set up to prevent this ravage next time. Why not? Why not show off how ridiculous green is by doing that? Why not? Yes, I like it. Okay, so we're going to place one in here. So by placing one in here, I'm halfway to having 2 in there at a sacred site. And we're gonna have Overgrown a Night, which we're gonna try and play next turn. So we can make a sacred site in the fast phase and then use our choke the land with green ability in the actual ravage. You see, it all comes together. Okay, so next turn it's gonna be ravage here, which we can just prevent. We're not going to be able to prevent both of them, though. Unless we distorted our turn immensely to do so. Which I don't think we would be able to. We won't have the energy to play both. We're going to be forced to do this next turn to afford Overgrown a Night. But it's definitely worth it. So I've got a choice. I could either do a damage with Stem in this land or this land. And then I could finish off whichever town I destroy. And I think because there's been an Explorer in here already, I'm less incentivized to try and clear this and then clear this in the defend, because we do have this little defend ability here as well. Cheeky little defend ability, which you can actually access by getting this plant early. Typically, I get this first energy and then I go racing down the bottom track. But if you need this defend, you can just pip this plant, and often that's what you need to get that defend too. So let's just solve this problem here. So this isn't actually an immediate problem. Not only that, but it's in a wetland, right? So it's in a wetland, so we're always placing presents in there. So any problem in a wetland or a jungle, we can solve with Choke the Lemon Green. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that idea. So we'll do a damage with Stem, and we'll finish with Creeper's Tear. So now in the Ravage, unless the event hurts us, but we're not playing with events, we're playing base game. Psych peasant. Psych. I don't even know what Psych is. Too much of a boomer. Do you know what Psych is? Or do you actually have questions about Spirit Island? I'm more qualified to answer those than I am to answer questions about what Psyching is. Is it like cycling? No, probably not. Okay, so we've got this Ravage here. We're gonna prevent this. We actually don't need this. This is probably folly to some degree. We might have been better off just to let this blight, just so we could focus all of our energy on clearing out all this slot. It's still fine. Right, so growth option now. We want to play Overgrown Night, which is yet another opportunity to place a presence. Now it's slightly different in that even in multi-spirit we are adding our own presence, whereas in multi-spirit we'll be using Gift of Proliferation on other spirits. Now, Gift of Proliferation is incredibly strong if you are playing with other spirits. Some spirits really benefit from an acceleration like this, and others it doesn't really make much odds. Typically, it's going to be your spirits that only place a presence eat one a turn. They really benefit from this. So the spirits that are capable of placing multiple presents on their own, spirits like Lightning or whatever, their tracks aren't generally quite as good. So there you go. There's a nice generality for you. Okay, so we want to place a presence in here and then prevent the Ravage. We'll do that with Overgrow. And then we've got Field Stroke with Growth, which actually looks low-key, but it's actually really useful. This town push we can use to potentially maybe push this town away from the inland, or even to push this town away from here so we don't have to worry about the Ravage here. But this is very defendable, and there are 2 Dahan in there for the counter. So really good general principle is that if you can get your Dahan to do your fighting for you, it's typically very, very efficient damage. You just need a cheap defend card, and then these guys, if they get sufficiently defended, that's 4 damage back, which if you're going to just pay for 4 damage would probably cost you quite a lot of energy. So if you can use these the Dahan to do your damage for you, well, then you're very happy indeed. So we are going to go with getting this energy together for Overgrown Night. So let's just click it. So we're going to have 4 energy this turn. And if we spend 2 of it on Overgrown Night, we are not going to have the energy to play a major. Well, unless we get a 2-cost major. There are a handful of them, but most majors are between 4 and 3. So, and also, given that I'm probably going to rocket down the plays track, I probably want a minor power anyway. And typically, I would go with a minor power this turn, unless the map was looking a bit out of control, in which case I might go for an early major. But yeah, we're going to go with a minor power here. Ooh, okay, we've got some good stuff here. So remember, when you're looking at a minor power, I've got a whole video on this, feel free to check that out. But when you're looking at a minor power, there's a few considerations. Does it have good elements for my abilities? Well, Gift of Power happens to have all the best elements. It has all the best elements for green. And it's a 0 cost. Oh, it's gorgeous. So it helps us defend, it helps us do damage, it does everything for us. The other consideration is, what does it do for me right here on the board right now? So basically the elements is typically, well, not always, but a lot of the time the elements are saying, if you get the good matching elements, then you'll kind of contribute to your strength in the long term or the medium term. Whereas if it's solving an immediate problem, all these are slow, which means that they're not going to, for example, prevent this build or anything, because they're all going to happen after this build. But that's the kind of power that often you go, oh yeah, that's handy. Oh yeah. So none of these are that. Not an overexplain, I'm not going to go into why I don't want these. I'm just going to go with this because it has perfect elements. And for me, when I was first playing this game, which was a while ago, the first big step up in my ability, or my ability to actually not just lose, was when I started really leaning into my innates. Seems obvious now, but at the time I was very happy not to. So I'm going to place a presence in here, make a sacred site, which is like, with green, it's like a safety, it's like an insurance policy. Not only that, but I like to place my sacred sites in this way because now I'm in or adjacent to every land on the board with a sacred site, which is good for targeting. Right, so we've still got just the 2 actions. We'll go Overgrown and Night. We could go early into Gift of Power. And gaining minor powers is just wonderful for a spirit that has 4 players. I'm going to be on 4 players very soon. We are going to be placing a presence with Overgrow, which we could use to reveal this plant. Why would we want to do that? I hear you say. By revealing an extra plant, I'm able to get to 3 plants with only 2 plays, and I get this extra defend too. So, if I was playing with events, and I'm not, I could get a bit of insurance in this Ravage here. But I'm not playing with events, so I'm not doing it. Not doing it. Let's go with Gift of Power. Field Choked is also really good. The pushing 3 Dahan around is great. And the pushing towns is great too, because we could just push this town from here to here. Given that there are Dahan here, though, we'll just set up to defend in here and kill these on the counterattack. Okay, so we'll play those, and we'll overgrow in here. So we're looking to prevent this. I'm not 100% sure that this is the strongest possible play. I think probably the strongest would be to be acting to destroy all the inland buildings. But this way is a little bit tidier. I'm going to go. Yeah, it doesn't make much odds, but let's we could reveal that plant, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go down the plays track. The good thing about going down the plays track is it means we'll have 4 actions next turn. Let me just illustrate. So if I took this, then next turn, if I reclaim, I'd only be placing 1 presence, so I'd only have a maximum of 3 actions. Whereas going with this option, going with placing the presence here, I now will have 4 actions if I place this presence with my always adding to jungle or wetland. You see, so we're now in the Ravage and I can prevent this. I'm going to do that. Why not? And in this Ravage here, the single Explorer damaged Dahan. Dahan survived and fought back and killed it. Okay, so here's our first opportunity to prevent a build. Now, here's something that's tricky with green. Easy mistakes to make are destroying your sacred sites that you need for targeting. We don't need a sacred site for targeting this turn, but it's so easy to mess this up. It really is. So I think in this case, given that we're not playing with events, I'm gonna just prevent this build. Why not? Why not? Because if there's no building here, they can't explore from here. And there's no Dahan in here for a counterattack, so we can't, like, whereas in here, if we just defend in there, these 2 Dahan will clear this land for us. That's not the case here. So let's prevent this build. Yeah, why not? Let's prevent this build. Okay, and now it's our explore. So, sand. Okay, sand's kind of good for us. I don't think it's really good for us, but I just, make a conversation. Okay, so we've got a single damage, which is not going to make any difference to anyone. So, but let's have a look at our power from Gift of Power. Okay. So, this time we have not been offered ideal elements. I mean, I think Gift of Power is pretty much the best possible first minor power for green. Maybe? So, I mean, it's got perfect elements. It gets you minor powers to allow you to use all your plays. So, okay, we do not have a perfect element setup. So we don't have water plant or moon plant. We've got a little bit of moon. We've got a little bit of plant. So we can't just go, oh, we'll pick the elements now. Yeah, interesting collection. I'm trying to work out how to say something that's intelligible about this. Okay, apparitions we'll just go through all of them. Apparitions is really strong. The defend 2 is not why. This is why. If there are no invaders present, gather up to 2 explorers. So you can use it to prevent a build. That's the crucial. That's why this is strong. The defend 2 is sometimes useful, but that's not why. That's not why this card's good. It also has the moon on it. We like moons, but yeah, we like moons. We like moons. This is actually a very useful power it's a jungle sand defend of 4. Defend 1 is actually pretty useful in base as well. Because you know that if you defend 1 and that's enough, you know it's enough. Nothing's going to change that. And in fact, we could use this next turn. So actually wait. Not next turn. The turn after, we could use Drift Down into Slumber to defend in one of these jungles, or even we could use the next turn to defend one of these Ravages. We don't need to defend this because this 1 damage is never going to be enough in base to actually blight this land. But we're probably going to incidentally defend that land anyway, because we're going to place a presence and then we're going to place this plant, and we've got the adjacent sacred site. So as long as we play plant water cards, we're going to have this defend. So we actually don't need Drift Down until the far future. Hey, Visions of Fiery Doom gets us fear, which is nice. We get a town or an explore push, and it's a fast one, so again we can use it to prevent a build, which is valuable. The chance to get some extra fear, not bad. We're not very fiery, but as we've got Gift of Power, and I'm probably going to play it as much as possible, we might get that extra fire. We might do. The other nice thing about this is we could use this to just push any buildings away from the inland. They're maybe potentially preventing explores, which we like. Okay, and then finally we've got Pool Beneath the Hungry Earth, which actually for us works pretty well, because if target land has a presence, 1 fear and 1 damage, and if it's a sand or wetland, it's another damage. But the reason it works well for us is because we have this ability that's very similar, 0 range damage to buildings. So actually, for us, the moon's kind of good too, and the water. For us, this is actually pretty good. This is a power that's often not great for anyone. So we could go with the option of using this next turn to prevent this build. So drag this explorer into this land that's empty. It won't work in that bottom sands. But we don't need to worry about the bottom sands because Dahan in there will just make a sacred site in one of these lands and defend. So that's fine. Or we could use Pull Down. I feel like using Pull Down, especially as we can use this potentially in this land here. Now we're going to be at 4 plays as well, which means that to get this Defend 2 that we want, we can play something that doesn't have plants on. Especially if we reveal this. So I think I'm going to go with Pull Down, but I think you can actually make a case for any of these cards. There's no clear favourite. If you have a suggestion, free to put it in the comments. Follow these comments. But I think you could make a good case for any of those cards. Okay, we are back to growth. We've got this Ravage, which doesn't matter. We're going to defend in here. And we've got... Oh, another thing I should have factored in is, can we skip the reclaim? So yeah, a good general principle is placing presence all the time. Now with green, because they place so much presence anyway, especially in solo, because they're placing their own presence with Gift of Proliferation, you don't have to worry so much about placing presence because you're always going to be placing presence. Wait, that's misleading. What I mean is, with other spirits, their reclaim option is horrible because typically they won't place presence on there. That's not true of all spirits. But green, because they have 2 cards in their hand where they're placing presence, the reclaim is not such a horrible option for you. Just not so horrible. So we're going to have 3 energy this turn. So I think I'm going to go with a reclaim, gain another power, and we'll decide whether we place from this or this, probably depending on our power choice. So the minor power, let's have another look. Okay, so more nice cards for us. Again, nothing that really... Do we have a single element of... I mean, I guess the water's a little bit useful for us. These are not the ideal elements, but that's fine. This is a defend card, and this is probably one of the most useful defend cards in the game. Even though it's 0 range, even though it needs an air to bump its range, even though the elements are often irrelevant, what's good about it is it costs 0, especially when you're playing with spirits that have a lot of plays and not a lot of energy generation, like green. The fact it costs 0 is a big deal. Like, I mean, currently, I've got 1 energy a turn and an occasional boost from here. So the fact it only costs 1 energy is probably the clincher here. More Beasts is a funky card that, unless you've got a lot of beasts, it doesn't really do a lot. But look at that lovely art. Drought is a very strong card that places Blight. We're probably not going to want to use that. Call to Bloodshed is like a mini Thunder Speaker in a minor power. The Gather 3 and the 1 damage per Dahan. Let's have a little look. See, if we took this, we could play it this turn in that Coastal Sands, and then we wouldn't need to defend next turn, because those 2 Dahan in the coast would destroy the town that gets built this turn. Not that we were that worried about that anyway. You know, we wouldn't be solving a particularly pressing problem. So I think I'm just going to go with taking Sap because it's a good cheap defend card. And now, of course, we have to place a jungle or wetland presence. So we could, instead of using our innate, we could use Sap, but that's pointless. That is, as long as we play a water card, we're going to get this free defend power anyway. Just a quick sanity check to see that we've got a sacred site adjacent. Yes, we do. So I'm actually just going to remake this sacred site to try and stave off any errors that I was thinking of making. Okay, so, and again, we've got the sacred site targeting everywhere. So our main priorities are defend in here, which we can do just by playing something with water and plant. We're almost certainly going to want to play Gift of Power, because this, again, is how we power up. So what other things do we want to do? This Ravage doesn't matter. We can grow ourselves with Gift of Proliferation or Overgrown at night, and that's probably a good thing to do. Yeah, because we can get ourselves some energy. Now, you'll notice this one costs, in solo, this one costs 2 to add a presence, and this one costs 1. So most of the time, they're semi-interchangeable. But if you, this power here is very good. Getting Fast Fear is pretty wonderful. Don't sleep on this. It's easy to forget that even exists. Okay, so I'm actually quite keen to destroy this town. You know, the idea of destroying that town is speaking to me. But if we can get more moon plant, we might be able to maybe destroy this city. We could even do this wild. We could place 2 extra presents this turn, which would get us into the stage of being able to have a bit more energy to play with. Which, yeah, does have a value. The other nice thing is with all these moon greens, the trouble with that, we're only doing 2 damage. It would be good fun to kill this city. And it's a good general principle is that if you can destroy cities, we can use stem to do some damage in there. A good general principle is that if you can destroy a city, it's generally a good idea too, because they're much harder to destroy than towns. Not just because of the extra health they have, but because just game effects are way less likely to remove cities. Okay, so we've got the Creeper's Tear and we've got the stem. Because that coastal mountain is a mountain, this is actually going to do 2 damage in there. So we should be able to clear out all the buildings in there. I think this is reasonable. We might be going a bit top heavy on this turn. As in, our next turn is not looking so great. But we don't really... But reclaiming is not a problem, because we're still placing a lot of presence. And so I think this is fine. And you might find with green, once you've played them a bit, that they just feel so incredibly strong. You almost feel like you can do anything, because if there is an awkward Ravage or a build, you can just put presence in there so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so this land is going to get cleared on the counter, so they're going to attack with 3, defend 4, blocks it. These 2 Dahan are going to just clear this land out. So I don't want to place presence in here because there'll be nothing to damage in there. Let's put some presence. Let's use our gifts to just place some presence about the place. This land is going to be a very similar situation to this land, but just a turn in the future, so that's going to get cleared as well. So I'm just going to distribute my land all over the place. Now there is the idea... No, we'll put one in here. There's the idea of putting presence in lands that are not wetland and jungle when you have the chance. So that's something to think about. Because we get free presence every turn in wetland or jungle. Okay, so we're going to allow this Ravage because it doesn't matter. We get the counterattack here, we clear this land. And now we go back to sands. They build a couple of towns. It's fine. And we have coastal explore. Well, okay then. So, a coastal explore might have changed things, but it doesn't really change anything because it still makes sense for us to destroy the buildings in here. This is an interesting thing. We have Ravage into build in the same land. This is the ideal situation. So defend with Dahan, they counterattack, clear the land, and therefore kind of prevent the build. That can be a nice thing to gun for. And we do have another good general principle here, which is if you are going to gain a card and then do an action, gain the card first in case it influences that action. Unless you're really tired and just want to conserve brain energy by not having complex decisions or as many complex decisions. Okay, so we've been offered some cards. These are cards. So nothing ideal element wise, nothing like, you know, this Gift of Power, which is just perfect. But we might want to think about cards that are useful for us just for what they do. So next turn we've got a build in every coastal land. We're not worried about the one in the sands because it's going to get cleared in the Ravage, but we are going to have a couple of builds here and here. If we were to take, for example, Veil the Night's Hunt, we could, and it's a fast power, and we could do it to destroy this explorer here and prevent the build. And that's kind of solving that problem. But it's not that big a problem anyway, except that we're going to have two different lands to defend. And if we do prevent this build, then we only have to defend this inland, this central mountain. So yeah, that's okay. And we're probably going to want to gain a major power as well. So it's sometimes, you don't always have to pick the ideal card. You really don't. Or we could go with using Voracious Growth. We don't prevent it, we allow it, and then we destroy the town, which is also pretty good. We even have the possibility of cleaning up the starting blight. It also does have better elements, but I mean, this is one of those situations where in base these are identical situations, but with events different. But we're not playing with events today. We're being principled. Well, I'm trying to be principled here. Let's go with this. Let's go with this. Has slightly better elements, and damage is good. Damage is good. We like damage. Yeah, I think for us this is fine because we know that we can defend this because we've got a nice big defend card and we've got this ability here. So I think we'll go with Voracious Growth because this does also give us a bit of damage in our jungles and wetlands. So yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, so we'll go with our plan of clearing the buildings from here. So you notice that you can actually target this in multiple different lands. You're not obliged to put them all in the same land. Okay then. So this turn we've got a Ravage here. So as long as we remember to defend there, then that's fine. We have a Ravage here. Also, so we could of course prevent a Ravage. So if we're going to prevent a Ravage, we prevent the one where you don't have a lovely counter attack. But we've got Sap, the Strength of Multitudes anyway, so we're fine. And actually, this turn, both of our growth powers are in the bin. But the thing is, we're at the point now where we don't have that much growing to do. We just don't have that much growing to do, so So what I'm debating is which growth option to go with here. If we've got enough, we've got a plant on our tracks and we've got water cards and two. So as long as we play both growth and fields choke with growth, then we should have this defend 2, which is all we need in here. And then we could use sap in here. So I'm going to go with not reclaiming here. And maybe we could look at a major power. Let's look at a major power. It's possibly entirely unnecessary. And we could forget maybe one of these cards. Or even one of these. We've only got 4 plays. The extra energy will be nice. It will give us a bit of flexibility too. Yeah, let's gain a major power. So remember I mentioned earlier about using my innate was one of the things that leveled up my play considerably. Going for mages earlier in the game is also another thing, because a major power is can be a tremendously, it's the opportunity to clear big built-up lands. Okay, well, we've been offered these are definitely cards. These are definitely powers. So mages, you're not as worried about your elements, because they're such powerful effects, relatively powerful effects typically, that it's more about what they'll do for you. Well, let's think about this. So there are a few things that impact with a major. It's like, can you get the threshold easily? I think sometimes the threshold jump is really big and significant for some mages, but for others, not so much. So, for example, this going from 2 fear to an additional to 6 fear is huge. And we're pretty moony. We could go for Terrifying Nightmares, but the trouble is that these 2 moon powers are going to become way less relevant. In fact, this is probably what I'm going to forget. This one still has a good use for gaining fear. This is tempting. We could even use it this turn to prevent this mountain build. So this one has the most straightforwardly matching elements. Vigor of the Breaking Dawn we don't have the cards at the moment to get this threshold. This is a tremendously powerful card if you've got the right setup for it. But we don't really. So this is one I'll pick if I can immediately use it for good value, or if I've got the tools in hand to set up for it to be good value, but I don't have any Dahan movement or anything. Cleansing Floods is a lot of damage and blight removal. 14 damage is going to clear most lands you encounter in. Most lands, not all lands. But it's actually possibly a bit expensive. We can't use it this turn. Poison Land adds its own blight, right? But it's a lot of damage. It's relatively cheap for this much damage. But it's tempting. Tempting to just use it to smash something. And we've still got a healthy island, so we're not too worried about all that. Okay, let's just see where we are with our fear game. Okay, so we are 2 fear cards from Terra 2. So 7 fear, and then we'll win if we have no buildings on the map. I think you could. I mean, none of these are like standout, I would say. I think I'm going to go Terrifying Nightmares. And I'm not going to play it this turn. I'm going to play it on a future turn. And hopefully get this threshold, which does require 4 moon cards. So we've got Gift of Power and Overgrow. I'm actually going to get rid of... I'm going to get rid of Sorry, I do try and keep my ums to a minimum. Let's get rid of... Let's get rid of this. We'll keep our moons. We'll keep our slightly cheaper moon. Okay. So we'll place a presence in here. And you'll notice, by the way, that I could place this destroyed presence with steady regeneration. I wouldn't do that unless you've cleared your tracks. Just wouldn't do it. Okay, so this one we defend. So we need to just make sure we play a couple of water cards. Or a water card and a couple of plant cards. So we're actually forced to play these 2, turns out. It turns out we have to play them. Oops, extreme close-up. But I'm not complaining, quite happy with that. So, we want to defend in here as well, why not? We've got the card for it. So we defended in both of our sands, and then we've got these builds here. So, I think... I'm going to go with Pool Beneath Thunder, and we will destroy the town that gets built this turn. It incidentally gets us Creeper's Tear, but I don't think that's going to matter. Oh, we also can destroy it with voracious growth. We do have another town here to destroy. Okay, so all enveloping green for 2 defending there. Oh yeah, I would do these slightly differently with events, but we're not playing with events. Okay, scapegoats. Each town destroys an explorer in its land. Okay. Okay. Okay, scapegoats. And then we have the sand road. So we have this one here that's just going to clear that land. Perfect. And yeah, so we've got this nice effect there of ravage in the same land, so same land ravaging and then building, and then but clearing it, therefore kind of preventing the build. And we have a wetland explorer. Okay. So yeah, we're going to have the same situation here of this coastal, and then it's also a wetland, so it's going to go ravage and then build. So if we can, if we can clear this or defend it effectively with Dahan, then we're kind of onto a winner. We've actually got quite a lot of effects to do here. So and we've got different ways of dealing with this. Next turn, we're going to have 2 ravages. If we reclaim, we're going to have our sap back. We're going to have presence in there, and we're going to have our all-enveloping green. So I'm actually not that worried about these. This is only going to be a 4 damage ravage. So we can defend it with sap. This is going to be a 4 damage ravage. So as long as we get to the second tier. Interesting. Second tier requires us to play for all 4 of our plays to have plants on, which means we wouldn't be able to play stuff like sap. So actually, we might be forced to maybe use Terrifying Nightmares to push from here into here. The trouble is, it's getting a bit convoluted here, but I'd love to get this threshold, which needs 4 moons. But I can't get that 4 moons at the same time as getting the 2 water 4 plants. So we are going to have to pay attention to this coast. Why was I talking about that other stuff? Because in a dream world, I would have been able to clear some of these do some damage in these lands here and here. A dream world. But it's okay. We can actually clear this land. And then all we need to do is defend with sap. Or, next turn, we could plan to use Terrifying Nightmares and get Threshold. That's pretty nice, isn't it? We'd have to reclaim, so we've actually got some cards. And we could use Terrifying Nightmares to push these explorers and towns from this land, away from the coast, say into here. And the thing with green is you can do another trick, which not all spirits can do, which is just stacking enemies in one land. Not only that, but some adversaries make that awkward too. Like England, for example, you can lose if you stack 7 buildings. But green, because they can just prevent a ravage or a build, I could just push any number of enemies in here and just not be that worried about it. So, if to get my 4 moons, to get this mass extra fear, I'd need to play all of these cards. So I'd need 7 energy. I could play this. This is cheaper. I actually don't think I can afford it. I'd need 6 energy. Damn it. Thwarted. Okay, so the Terrifying Nightmares feared energy dream might just be a dream. Okay, let's clear this land. Sometimes you just got to do stuff. Sometimes you just got to do the stuff. Oh, I've just realised that I've made a mistake there. We've got Creeper's Tear to the Mortar, and this only affects buildings, right? So I need to actually use that on this building. And so now we've just got an Explorer there, so this Explorer in the Ravage will attack and get killed. So that's kind of how we like it. So we got some more damage. So this is only jungle or wetland damage, and we've only got, let's destroy this town as well. And we've got a fields choked with growth, so we could push some Dahan around. Interestingly, these Dahan here are now doing nothing, and we're planning to defend in here next turn. I think the Terrifying Nightmares thing is slightly out of reach, so let's just push these into here so that we'll clear these in the Ravage. Okay, so we're back to the growth phase. So so with green, it's the usual metrics. With other spirits, I'd be really tempted to just try and make a turn work with my hand, but there's no need to do that here. Yeah. We can't quite make the Terrifying Nightmares turn work. Because if we could get to this presence here, but no. So yeah. Oh, unless we gain a 0-cost moon minor power. But what is the big benefit of pushing these out? Especially we've got a good defend counter here. So actually I think we're getting just as much value just by defending as by going for all this fear. The interesting thing is we might even get this as well, depending on how many moon plant cards we have. Actually, I think I'm going to go with a minor power. We'll see. Okay, we've got some interesting stuff here. Elemental Boon is supremely powerful in multi-spirit because you can give elements to another spirit and you also get them, which is incredible value. Or for spirits that play a lot of major powers with awkward thresholds. So, yeah, this is a very, very useful card. For us, as a solo spirit, it's not quite as good. It's still good. What we really wanted was a 0-cost moon card, but we didn't get given one. Call to Isolation is actually, it doesn't look like much, but this pushing invaders from where Dahan are is very useful. For example, in this land, in this coastal mountain, we could push the Town and the Explorer out, and then that land is just sorted. I mean, we've got a solution for that land anyway, but it's kind of a low-key card that does more than you think. Devouring Ants, I just don't really use Devouring Ants very much. Got nothing to say about you. And Purifying Flame is a blight removal card, but we don't have any mountain or sand blight. Unlikely to have any. Let's just go with Elemental Boon. It is that powerful. I think I remember it being one of the first minor powers where I realized just how powerful it was. Okay, so we'll just... this placement doesn't really matter. Okay, so we've only got 5 energy, so we can't do the Terrifying Nightmares Dream, but we've got a good turn anyway. We might even be able to win this turn. Let's see. So, Ravage here, this guy's going to get cleared. We defend here, this is going to get cleared. Then they're going to build here, so we could just plop this down to destroy this town, and then, as long as we can destroy this town, and we're at Terra 2, then we can win. So we are 3 fear away from Terra 2. Destroying this town that gets built here is one of those fear. Destroying this is another. We only need another couple, 1 or 2 fear. I lost track. Oh god. So we just need to make sure we've got that all of our cards are plant, or alternatively we could just use sap. That gets us our defend. Okay, let's go with getting the defend with sap, destroying this town that gets built, and then we just need to destroy this so we could go back to the old ways. The thing we did turn 1. Oh, did I forget the card I needed to do that? Yeah, I did. Well done, peasant. I forgot my starting card that does a damage. Ah, well. Well done, peasant. Well done. So we'll have to destroy it in a clunkier way. Fine. So we could use Pull Beneath the Hungry Earth to do 2 damage in there with our presence. So if it also get us a bit more fear. We've got the defend here. Let's just make certain that we've got the fear with this. This hat, I don't wear this hat very often because it stops me thinking. It's not the ideal hat to play when you're trying to commentate a strategy game, but sometimes you just gotta wear a different hat. So I'm gonna just gain a load of fear. So now we win for lack of buildings, and if my calculations are horribly out, these extra fear cards will be my redemption. So we've got defend, and no way this doesn't do anything in base. Okay, so Dahan have some extra defend. Lovely stuff. And here's another fear card. Defend 2 in all lands with presence. Each spirit gains an energy per sacred site that have in lands with invaders. Okay, we've just been given some energy. And we are not going to prevent this ravage. Okay, and now we've cleared this in this ravage. Now they're going to build in this wetland. Oh, we could just prevent the build. But yeah, but there's no need. Except, interestingly, if we'd prevented that build and they'd got a jungle explorer, they wouldn't have been able to go in here. So yeah, in this circumstance, we just need to destroy these 2 buildings, and then that's it. And then that is it. But as you can see, green is incredibly strong. Probably one of the strongest spirits, but not necessarily in a particularly flashy way. Not like Keeper or someone like that. It's all flashy. But yeah, hopefully that was useful. And I definitely, if you like the look of green and you're a newer player, apart from the opening, which is a little bit finicky, where you need to get that sacred site and have a presence in with a building, apart from that bit, it's mostly not too tricky. As long as you can get past that first turn. And you need that top energy. That's my top tip for opening with green. Let's get some details. And I like to hide the score behind my head because I don't believe in scores. Anyway, like the video if you like the video, and if you have any questions about Spirit Island or or my hat, I don't care, whatever, then just let me know down in the comments.